Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Three, two, one. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. I know how excited you guys are to hear from my man. I've had the honor of learning from Dan. I have so many of my friends that have went through his coaching programs, his mentor programs, and it's been nothing but amazingness. So, Dan, we are super excited and blessed to have you. Guys, be ready to learn. I'm telling you, this is the session to be at when it comes to, scaling and just really understanding fundamentals of this real estate business. So, Dan, we're excited. The show's yours, brother.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me back, and thank you for everybody attending this session. What I'm really hoping for, I have what I want to show you guys, but I'm very interested as well in hearing your questions and hearing what you want to know so that you can scale your own business up. And if there's a chat feature, I'd love to know how many people in the audience have done, say, 0 to 1 project, maybe 1 to 5 projects, and 5 to 5 and up. So we can kind of go through that later on. All right, guys. So this is scaling your business, scaling up your business. All right. So we're gonna start with ways that you guys can stay in touch with me. I am Dan, the real estate man, Dan Harvey, for those who don't know me. And if you want to follow me on social media, on Facebook, it is Dan, the real estate man. On Instagram, it is Dan, the real estate man 1, because I lost the password to Dan, the real estate man. And if you want to check out my website where I have some of my videos of my past projects, just videos that I put up on real estate in general, you can go to www.dantherealestateman.biz. That's www.dantherealestateman.biz. And if you guys want to get any of my emails about any of my upcoming classes or rehab tours or anything that I have going on, you can text Dan the real estate. I left off, man, but it's Dan the real estate to 22828. That's Dan the real estate to 22828. I'll leave this up here for a quick second to give you guys an opportunity to text that information over. All right. So who is Dan the real estate man? The picture that you guys see on the screen was of my 40th birthday party. This was pre-COVID. Great event. Try to really enjoy life. I was very, very fortunate. This was in December of 2019. So this was before the whole COVID mess that we're living through now, and had a really big 40th birthday party. A lot of friends around. It was really, really nice. So you definitely have to seize those opportunities when you have it, because you never know when something like COVID is going to show up. So I was born and raised in Philly. I was raised in Southwest Philly, for anybody who knows that area. I graduated Dobbins Tech, which is a VOTech school. I was very fortunate where I actually got a job at SEPTA, a co-op program, which is a great program. I got a job at SEPTA between my junior and senior year at Dobbins. And once I graduated Dobbins, I started working at SEPTA full time. I was in electrical maintainer, which is a really good union job there. I worked for the railroad, and I worked for SEPTA for 18 years. So, again, from the time I was about 17 years old. probably unlike some of you guys, I am an accidental investor, meaning I never had any ambition to buy real estate. I was working at SEPTA, and I had a separate business where I did events. Started off with small parties at like neighborhood bars, and built that up to doing events and in small arenas. So arenas that like 10,000 people. We would bring in entertainers, rappers. We would have basketball, like live basketball games. We have the best basketball players for Philadelphia, play the best basketball players from New York. And then I took that idea and we traveled the country. And so honestly, that's how I thought I was going to become wealthy. I thought I was going to be the next Alan Heyman. For anybody who knows who that is, that obviously didn't happen. But that was the path that I was on, and I was fairly young. I was in my early 20s, and my mom, who is a real estate agent, but she's a mom, saw that I was making money young. I was working at SEPTA. I had this really good job. I was doing events, and she didn't want me to do what most young people do with their money, which is waste, right? Or some cars or some jewelry or some nonsense that years later would have no value. So she said, why don't you buy real estate? I had very little interest in buying real estate, but it's my mom. So I figured I'd make my mom happy. I'd go look, and I let her down slowly later. But through that process of looking at real estate, it actually got my mind thinking, said, you know what, this wouldn't be a bad third income stream, right? I had my SEPTA job, I had my entertainment business, and then I would be a landlord as well. So I wound up buying my first property, and the rest is pretty much history. I'm going to kind of speed that part up because I want to get through the meat of what I have. And so I decided I was messing around with real estate. First property I bought was a bank-owned property. I bought it for about $20,000. I sold it 2 years later for about $78,000 or something like that, $80,000. And I had bought another building right after that. It was a triplex. I bought it for about $76,000. Sold it a couple years later for $180,000. And I'm like, damn, right? I'm making this money buying real estate, and I had no idea what I was doing. So I said, well, if I read a book, I may be dangerous. So I decided by the time I was 35, I was going to quit my job and become a full-time investor, and that's what I did. I quit SEPTA 3 days before my 35th birthday. In fact, I'm coming up on that was December 25th, Christmas of 2014. So now I'm coming up on my 6th year of being a full-time investor. In that time, I've been able to build out a multi-million-dollar investment portfolio, and this is a real multi-million dollars. And I'm the sole owner of this business. So let's talk about my company. My company's name is DMH Investments. It is a buy and hold company with a focus on multi-family conversions in West Philadelphia. Excuse me. And for those who don't know what that is, a multi-family conversion is when you convert a property, be it a commercial property, a single-family property, and you convert that property into a multifamily dwelling by right. So that's what I do. I don't have to go through the variance process. I don't have to speak to neighbors. All of my projects are what's called by right projects. So I can build what I want to build by right. Currently, I'm working on 21 units across five projects. It's one triplex. There is 2 5-units and 2 quadplexes. I have 12 more. I have 12 conversion projects in the pipeline, and have also 70 ground up units in our pipeline. And that's a 44 unit building, 22 units that are contiguous lots, and then another 4 unit ground up. And this is all in West Philadelphia. And we're going to get to how I came to this process later on in this talk. All right, so that's a little bit about me and what I'm doing. Now we're going to talk about scaling your business up. So I want to talk about how me losing $100,000, actually $100,000 plus, it's about $105,000, helped me scale my business. In 2017, I was 2 years in as being a full-time real estate investor. My business was growing. At that time, I was doing flips, and I was focused on 2 things: finding private lenders and networking crazy. So I had found some private lenders, and through my networking, I was finding more and more deals. Excuse me. So I went from doing 1 to 2 projects in the first 2 years after I left SEPTA to do 1 to 2 projects at the same time, I should say, to doing about 6 to 7 deals simultaneously, right? And those deals went from being single family projects to being multi-family projects. So life was good, or so I thought. What really happened was, and I didn't realize it at the time, is that I was drowning. So I'm running around to all these different projects. I'm trying to oversee all of these projects. And I will never forget the phone call I got from this property that you guys see on the screen. This is in Norwood. And the local inspector called me up, said, "Can I speak to Mr. Harvey?" I'm like, "Hello." And he just proceeded to, "What the hell is going on in this project?" And I've spoken to a lot of inspectors in my day, and I've never talked to one that was so upset. You would have thought that I had messed his mother's house up. He was really, really upset. He was talking about about how the work was done, and that some of the work that my contractors did not pull a permit. So long story short, I said, "Well, listen, why don't I meet you at the property and we can go over everything." So I wound up meeting him at the property. I scheduled it for 2 days later. I wanted him to calm down. So I meet him there, and we're walking through the property, and he's showing me all these things that are wrong. And I'm like, wow, how did I miss all these, obviously, all this bad workmanship, right? And so we're walking through, and long story short, I had convinced the inspector not to make us take everything out. We had already we had plumbed the whole building. Now this was a triplex, so each floor had their own unit, and it was a rather large triplex. I had talked this guy into letting me keep some of what was there, but after he had left out, I ultimately decided to take everything out. Right, I didn't want that to be a part of my brand. So that was a big loss there because I had already paid this plumber, I paid for all the material, and we went back to the wall. So long story short, that with all those mistakes, I had to shut down jobs and focus on one project at a time. And that really just stretched out, the timeline of a lot of my projects, and the costs went through the roof. So I had priced this property to sell quickly, and thankfully it did. It was one of the few projects that it never even really made it at the time onto trend. We got an offer on the first day, and I priced it so that I could pay off all my lenders, all my vendors, but I lost about $105,000. Okay. So what was learned? Because I don't look at anything as a failure. I look at it as a learning experience. So what did I learn? What I learned was what got me to full-time investor status. Wasn't it would not get me to the next level. So what do I mean by that? I was GCing all of my projects, right? So I would meet the contractors, I would write the contracts, I would order the material, I would look at the work, and I still had tenants at the time. Maybe at the time I had about 30 or so tenants. I was dealing with tenants. So I'm doing all these things, and ultimately I was not doing them well. Now, up to a certain point, that worked, but it was not going to get me to that next level. So what I realized is that I needed systems. I needed systems in my accounting, in my construction, and in my property management. And also, I needed to delegate. And I needed to be clear about what my objectives, and I needed to create plans around those. And so what I did was I shut my rehab business down for about 6 months to focus on these issues here. Okay, so let's talk about the first one. Having clear objectives. And if you guys have any questions about this after this screen, we can go into some of those questions. So what I decided was I was going to focus solely on multifamily rentals. So no more flips. So I am a believer in narrowing your focus in business. I'd rather go deep than go wide. And so what you see often, and what I was doing, is you see people doing a lot of things either poorly or just okay, rather than becoming an expert in something, right? And so I decided I was going to become an expert in rehabbing multifamily rentals. And quite honestly, I just realized that I was making more money with burr rentals than I was with doing flips. And honestly, I just always hated doing flips. But I had to be honest with myself about where my strengths are. So if you're looking to scale your business up, look at what you're doing and really be honest with yourself and say, where am I really making money and where am I just spending time, right? Just because opportunities come up doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take them, right? So you should be looking through your business to really see which part of your business is really profitable. Then I decided that I would only focus on West Philly multifamily deals. And I decided that because I would know the area and it would help me buy more units faster. So when I look at deals in West Philly, oftentimes I can make offers without even physically going to the properties because I have so much experience in that space. I have rental comps. I have appraisal comps. I know what my costs are. I know the styles of my units. So it makes my process a lot easier. And I keep my rehabs very close. And that makes property management a lot easier. So most of my projects are generally on the same block or blocks. So it may be on the 300 block, the 400 block, and the 500 block. Or as in my properties that I bought on the 1400 block of North 52nd Street. I literally bought the whole block, right? And so my properties, even though it's technically a scattered site portfolio, it operates almost like a large building does. So again, it makes operating my units a lot easier. And so ultimately, you want to narrow your focus to what you are really good at. And I'll pause here just in case there's any questions that anybody has on this. Were there any questions? All right, if not, we'll go. Oops. So systems. So I needed systems to help me handle my increased business. I needed help with my property management. I mean, up till that point, I was using Excel spreadsheets to track income and expenses, and it was very time-consuming and confusing. So I went with a property management system called Yardi, and it tracks all of the above information, and you can export that information and share it with your bookkeepers. And it's much more robust. It can track maintenance. It can track late fees. It can hold leases. It can hold all sorts of documents. And granted, you don't have to use Yardi. There are plenty of other property management software out there. But if you're going to self-manage, you certainly want to have something better than what I was using, which was Excel spreadsheets. And I found Yardi to be helpful for that purpose. I also needed systems in my construction management. Again, I was using separate spreadsheets to track income and expenses, and it was very time consuming. So what I did was I picked up a system called Builder's Trend. It tracks projects, it tracks progress, contracts, and payments. You can also you can communicate with your project managers, with your contractors on that site. So you need much less kind of face-to-face meetings, right? If there's any change orders, it can be done there. You can put your budget on there. You can put all of your documentation on there. So everything is in one place. And again, these systems just make your life a lot easier. So you want to invest in systems and software that free up time and create efficiencies in your business. Delegate. So this one was really difficult for me personally because I have a controlling nature. I like to have my hand on everything. And I know I'm not the only investor that has those issues, right? You work so hard to build this business up. You don't want to necessarily let go of some of the roles, but you can't grow if you're trying to do everything. It is impossible. So you want to create a business owner mindset. And this was one big shift that had to happen just coming out of working for SEPTA for 18 years. There is a significant difference between a working person's mindset and a business person mindset. A working person mindset is sort of twofold. One of them is I can do this myself and I can do it cheaper if I do it, which may be true. And the other focus is nobody is going to do it as well as me. And the business owner mindset is I need to focus on high level activities. I need to focus on activities that actually bring in money, because quite honestly, you can only push down costs, but so much, right? And so you really, as the business owner, you need to focus on how profitable the business is. And so I hired a full-time admin that handles my property management and my day-to-day admin tasks. And we're probably about to add on another admin because we're still growing. And I paid a substantial salary. It was that was very scary for me personally, because you wonder, okay, can I afford to pay this person? And as a business owner, I always think you need to be a little bit out in front of where you actually are, right? So your business grows into your infrastructure. If your infrastructure is not set up well, and your business will quickly overtake it, and generally that doesn't work out well. So I'm constantly looking at the growth of the business, as many of you investors should be, and always staying out front of where your business is. You don't want your infrastructure chasing the actual business. I also hired 2 project managers, and they handle my rehab projects from start to finish. And this was very difficult for me personally because I worked closely with many of my contractors. And quite honestly, a lot of them at first had a really difficult time dealing with the project managers because they were used to dealing directly with me. But once I did that, it freed up a ton of my time. And so now and again, I can focus on finding, funding sources. I can focus on finding really good opportunities and have my project managers focus on the projects. And then I meet with them and they update me on what's going on, as well as having the software that's the glue to keep everything running seamlessly. I find that this particular issue is a big problem with investors trying to scale up. They want to either be on the project every day, which typically doesn't speed anybody up. You're just wasting your time, really. Or they think that they're going to swing the hammer and somehow that's going to make the cost lower. It will make the cost lower for that project, but it's going to slow you up. And on the larger scale up, you could have been doing more projects, and so you could have been more profitable without you swinging the hammer. And so hiring these key players freed up a ton of time for me. Okay. So you need a supporting team. If you've been in this business, we've all heard about this. You have to build a team. You have to build a team. You have to build a team. You don't have to employ everybody, but you need people around you. You need people who are experts in their field. So who are these people? So here's my team. I have lawyers for legal advice, and I have different lawyers for different issues. So I have sort of a general real estate lawyer who can handle contracts, who can handle dealing with evictions. Even though I have a separate lawyer that really focuses on handling that, and then I have lawyers that focus on zoning. And so you want to build that support team up, and that is a part of your networking. While you're going to these events, ask other investors about the lawyers that they are currently using, because that advice can save you a ton of money. I just had this happened to me just this past week where I was looking at it. I was looking at a deal that was right in my ballpark. I know the area well, and I ran across something I've never run across. It was a property that had dual zoning, which means that half of the lot was one zoning, the other half was a totally separate zoning that did not allow for multifamily properties. And so I called my lawyer. Even though I've done a ton of these deals, I still called my lawyer up just so that I understood exactly what I was getting myself into. So you need that brain trust around you. You need to hire an accountant whose expertise is aligned with your vision. All of this has to do with your vision of your company. I decided to focus on a profit driven business versus a deduction focused business, which means I'm trying to write off everything every single year. So you want to make sure that your tax returns support your goals and your visions. Again, I see this happen a lot where investors don't want to show a profit, but then they also have a hard time getting loans, and getting investments because it looks as if their business is not profitable. So I'm not telling you how to run your business, but you need to think about that as you're scaling up. What do you want your business to look like, right? You don't want the accountant figuring that out for you. You need to figure that out and have their expertise guide you on how to make those things happen. Mentors. This is very, very important. I pay to tap into the brains and circles of others, flat out. There are some things that you can learn through networks like this and through YouTube. There are some things you have to go directly to people who have the information or have the contacts. And I personally don't mind doing that. I have business people that I pay so that if I'm dealing with a structure that I am not accustomed to, I've never dealt with, I know I can call them up and say, hey, listen, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Does this make sense? Here is what I was offered. Does this make sense? Right? Because there are industry norms, and if you don't know what those norms are, you could hurt yourself, right? Because you don't want to pay somebody, you could get a bad deal, or you could have asked for more or something that is more aligned with the norms. So don't be afraid to pay to tap into the brains and circles of other people. The whole idea is that you don't want to recreate what is already there. If it's there and you can tap into it, that's going to be the fastest path to your growth and the fastest path to you scaling up. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. So again, I'll leave this up here. If you guys want to stay in touch with me after this presentation, again, on Facebook, it is Dan, the Real Estate Man. On Instagram, it's Dan, the Real Estate Man 1. On both of those platforms, I'm constantly leaving, videos and tips about, rehabs and multi-family conversions, on upcoming presentations, on everything. And then there's my website. It's www.dantherealestateman.biz. And again, if you guys are interested in joining my email list, you can text Dan the Real Estate to 22828. That's Dan the Real Estate to 22828 to get started getting those emails. I'm gonna click off here.
All right, Dan, we have time for a few questions if you want to go through them real quick.
Sure.
All right, guys, let's get into these questions. Guys, first of all, wow, we have a few popping in. A lot of viewers on here. So any questions that you guys had, please make sure to put those in the comment section now. We're going to pin them up. We literally have time for just a few questions here. So let's get started. Jason Homo, what's up, Jason? How are you? Felicia, that's not a question. Sorry. All right, here we go. How do you find deals and how do you fund them in today's market?
Sure. So, how do I find deals? I find them through my network. You need to be networking. You need to let everybody know that you are in real estate. If that's your primary goal, if you are a dentist, people ask what you do. Tell them that you buy real estate, right? You want to be clear about what you buy. Most of my funding is private lenders, but I also use all sorts of funding structures, but it's mostly private money.
Perfect. CB says, please explain the job of the project manager versus the role of the project manager.
No, wouldn't you be the project manager? No. So the answer is no. I am not the project manager. So my role is to find the deals. The project manager's role is to take my vision and create it in the building. So they do sort of act as proxy me on site, but they take those projects from start to finish. They hire the contractors, they deal with the contracts, and they negotiate. And what I did, because I was in a business for a while prior to hiring project managers, is that I basically gave them all of my contracts and said, hey, here's a good place to start, but also it's your job to expand this list and find additional contractors and find additional vendors and build those relationships.
Lovely. And this is going to be the last question here because we're now basically out of time. But Jason's asking about the mentorship. And I know you've been, in the game with mentorship and teaching and really adding value. So can you please let the audience know about the services that you provide and the real beauty of it when it comes to your mentorship?
Sure. Thank you. So I do mentor on a very, very limited basis. You can go to my website, www.dantherealestateman.biz, and schedule a 15-minute consultation, and we can see if we are a good fit. And I also have a boot camp on multi-family conversions, which I think is one of the best ways to create a ton of equity in your projects. It's like the burst system times 10. If we had time, I could explain a couple of the projects that I'm making, projects that I'm doing, but they have a ton of equity. But to answer your question, Jason, I do mentor, but I keep it to a very small number monthly.
Yep. And if you guys are in the Philadelphia area, you guys have to make sure you get connected with Dan. Of course, the majority of people who are tuning in are from Facebook and YouTube. So make sure you guys connect with Dan. Dan, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. Our viewers, stay excited, stay energetic. All right. And that's it for now. So we'll see you guys later. Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a great one.